Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Welcome. It's nice to be with you. We're continuing to tinker with our formats for Shabbat, trying to get to just the right balance between what feels prayerful and what feels good for us in our various locations, and what has the proper amount of input from people who can be involved in a Zoom session, but also has the proper amount of privacy for people who don't necessarily want to be seen on screen or have their homes seen on screen. So we welcome you, and we hope you enjoy this iteration of Shabbat, and we'll keep trying and tinkering with this and improving it as we go. It's very nice to be with you on this beautiful day, on the beginning of what is a 3-day weekend for most people, Memorial Day weekend. So we'll sing about how beautiful the day is. Ma Yafeh Hayom.
Yafeh hayom, Shabbat Shalom. Ma yafeh hayom, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you for that beautiful reminder of the beauty of today. Ma Yafeh Hayom, how nice it is, and how nice it is to be together and to see one another virtually, and to be able to come together and express gratitude for the gift of life, the gift of our health, the gift of our community, and the gift of our world, which is held together by an eternal God, an eternal presence that links all of us to each other and to the world and to all of creation. And we call it the watchword of our faith because it expresses our core ideal that everything is connected. We're connected to each other, not just over the transom of the internet, but in the depths of our souls. And so to mark that connection, I invite you to join with us as we sing the words of the Shema.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod Malechuto Leolam.
The Shema is one of our oldest prayers. It's found in the Torah, in the book of Devarim, in the book of Deuteronomy. The next prayer that we sing, the Michamocha, also finds its way through the Torah. It's in the book of Shemot, in the book of Exodus, at the Song of the Sea, when our ancestors went from slavery to freedom and thanked God for the miracles in their midst. And we too thank God for all the blessings that are in our lives. Even in this time of pandemic, most of us recognize that we are truly blessed to be where we are, to be able to be in contact with each other in a way that generations past never would have been able to. And so we thank God for those gifts with Michamocha.
Like God,
There's a time for words and there's a time for silence. A time when we listen to what's going on inside of ourselves and we listen for that still small voice of God, a voice comforting us, guiding us, hearing us. So I invite you now to take a few moments, or really as long as you like. You can always pause us and listen to that voice inside of you and listen for the quietness, the peace, the shalom that's inside each of us. It's there. Sometimes we just have to listen for it.
Stillness for contemplation. And we pray that out of that silence can emerge a new resolve to make the world a better place, to strengthen the connections of love and fellowship between us all in our community and throughout the world. It's with that intention we turn to our prayer for peace, Oseh Shalom. We pray that God's example of creating peace will be our path forward. Oseh Shalom Miroma, Yaseh Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael, Ve'al Kol Yoshvei Tevel.
I was looking through some pandemic poetry this week and ran across something that I thought perhaps I'd share before Misha Berach. The title is nearly as long as the poem. The title is Zoomed Out, or What to Do When Everyone You Know, Love, and Dream of a Better World With is a 1-inch talking head in a pixelated box. It's by Adam Horowitz. He says, praise their presence, grieve their absence, grow in your capacity to be touched by other faces and to not touch your own. Look someone directly in the eyes, they won't know, and send them love and a prayer for the well-being of everyone they care about. Try to wrap your mind around how they got here in front of you. If that doesn't spark radical amazement, try to explain how you got here and who you is. Wiggle your toes and watch the freshly budding tree rustle outside your window. Envision that tree occupying one of the squares on the screen. Ask what it would like to contribute to the conversation. Take your dreams off of mute and drop your spells in the chat box. Then, dazed by days online, unblock the gridlock with a tech Sabbath. Recover 3 dimensions, reach for a 4th. And remember, we'll be back at the bonfire before long. Gather your poetry, prepare your song. So let's send a prayer of well-being to everyone we know, everyone they care about, everyone whose name we know and everyone whose names we don't know. And ask God to remember them after this Shabbat and bring them a refuah shlema, a recovery of mind, body, and spirit.
Well, in our Torah portion this week, it's Bamidbar, which means in the wilderness. But the English name is Numbers. Probably know Numbers. And the reason the English name is Numbers is because it begins, the Torah, this book of the Torah begins with a counting of the Israelites of military age. And so this custom of counting of numbers is ancient. At that point, they counted in order to know the strength of the military. But today, we count for different reasons. And on one level, numbers are relatively unimportant. They're sometimes kind of like vanity statistics. You know, like we love the numbers that we have on our Zoom classes, our Shabbat services. We're thrilled, we're proud, and we count the numbers. But that's not really, it matters, but what matters more is the quality and the way it impacts us. But there are, you know, and the reason I am somewhat suspicious of numbers is that in Judaism, we've always thought that numbers are not the determinant of strength. Think about Jews, we are a tiny people. 13 million, 14 million Jews in the world. That's, I think, like 0.02% of the world population. So we are a tiny, tiny people. If strength and survival depended on numbers, we would have been gone a long time ago. We know that true strength is bigger than numbers. It's spirit, it's attitude, it's much more than numbers. So numbers aren't everything. And sometimes we think that, we confuse that. We confuse numbers with strength, and it's not. So therefore, we've always had a Jewish suspicion of counting and in putting too much reliance on numbers. However, there are areas of life where counting does matter. And when counting, when numbers can become a source of pikuach nefesh, of saving a life, we need to count. And in some ways, I think what we count reveals what we value, right? And then when we count, and we count thoughtfully, we can save lives. I think about this in terms of COVID-19 and the situation we're in. We use statistics to help us figure out what's working and what's not working. We measure, you know, we're looking daily at statistics of, you know, where are deaths peaking? Are we at, are we on the decline? Which numbers are rising and which ones are falling? What do those numbers reveal? What percentage of people are leaving homes, which aren't? The counting and the way we count and the trust in our numbers can really save lives. And I think that's something we have to think about in the years ahead. As I was thinking about this Torah portion, I came across an article by Larry Summers, who was the Treasury Secretary under President Clinton, and then I think he was economic advisor under President Obama, and then president of Harvard University. And he's an economist. And he wrote an article about how important counting can be. And in it, it's really interesting. He said, if mathematics is the queen of the hard sciences, then statistics, is the queen of social sciences. We, through numbers, through counting, we first learned that exercise is good for health. We found that London bus conductors had much lower rates than bus drivers, death rates. Similarly, data counting demonstrated that smoking was a major killer decades before the biological processes were understood. At a more trivial level, Moneyball showed how database statistics can revolutionize a major sport. And this is another point he says, I urged that what you count counts, and that we need much more timely and compelling data. In comparison to the nearly 6-year lag in poverty statistics, it only took the USA about 3.5 years to win World War II. In other words, we are so far behind on counting certain things that it hurts our progress. We're far behind in counting poverty, so we don't address it as meaningfully as we can. And this really, he goes on here, with the ubiquitous ability to collect data because of our smartphones and nearly unlimited ability to process it will come more capacity to discover previous unknown relationships. We will improve our ability to predict disasters like famine, storms, and revolutions. Communication technologies will allow us to better hold policymakers to account with reliable and rapid performance measures. And if history is any guide, we will gain capacities on dimensions we cannot now imagine, but will come to regard as indispensable. In other words, the more technologies we have, the more ability we have to gather data and count and build connections among that data. So perhaps, and then with that data, with those connections, we can make wiser decisions. Now, we all know how data can be manipulated and store, you can take the same pieces of data and tell different stories. We have to have trust. We have to illustrate our values. But we also have to know that counting is an ancient tool that we have used, that the ancient Israelites used to measure their strength, and still today can be used to help us solve problems. So what does that mean for each of us? Well, let's try to count things that are most valuable. Let's count in our own lives. Let's count the number of friends we contact each day. Let's count the number of times we say kind words to our spouse or a friend. Let's count the number of good deeds of mitzvot we can do. Let's count the number of blessings we say. These are all things that we can count. And then if we count what's valuable, we can improve the world. Counting may seem mundane, counting may seem superficial, but truthfully, we count what matters to us. And one of the things that matters to us is treasuring each and every day. That's why we count the Omer. Originally, we were counting barleys of wheat. That's where Omer comes from. But today we count the day because every day is valuable. So I invite you to join with Rabbi Sarada and Cantor J and I as we continue to count the days of the week, and let's all try to count what's most important in our lives.
So we're ready to fulfill the mitzvah of counting the Omer and recognize that this is symbolic counting that reminds us to do, as Rabbi Evan just said, to count the things that matter in our lives. This blessing, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al sfirat ha'omer. Today is day 44, which is 6 weeks and 2 days of the Omer. Our thoughts turn to those who are no longer with us, and particularly on this weekend as we mark Memorial Day, we think of all those who've given their lives in service to our nation. This is a tradition that goes back to the 19th century to remember those who've died in wars at home and on foreign lands. Perhaps one day we'll look back at this pandemic and put names on a list from this of those who've died in service to our nation. When we think of all those near to us who served in the armed forces, those whose names we know and those whose names we don't, and all others who died at this season in years past, all those we've taken into our hearts with our own, we turn to the ancient words of the Kaddish Yatom, the mourner's Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, Be'alma divra chirute v'yamlich malchute. B'chayechon uvyomechon uvchaye dechol Beit Yisrael. Ba'agalav v'zman kari v'imru. Amen. Yehei shmei rabba mevarach le'alamo olme olmaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitale v'yitalal shmei dekudesha brichu. Leilo min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nehemata, da'amiran bi'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehei shlomo rabba min shamaya, v'hayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Osei shalom b'mromav, huya asei shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen.
And for our closing song in service this Shabbat, we will turn to Adon Olam. And I'll just share a little insight that I gathered from our meditation and music group that meets on Thursdays. The final stanza of Adon Olam Beyado Afkid Ruchi. Into your hands we entrust our spirits. And this is to God we address. And with our spirits and body in God's protection, we shall not fear. It's with that sense of calm, serenity, security, safety, we celebrate community in Shabbat, and we sing these words of Adon Olam. Adon Olam, Asher Malach, B'terem Kol Yitzir Nira, Leit Nasa B'chefzo Kol, Azai Melech Shemo Nira, Be'acharei Kichot HaKol, Levano Yimloch Nora, Be'hu Hayom, Be'hu Oel, Be'hu Yeh B'tifara, Be'hu Echad, Be'en Sheni, Lehameshir Lo Le'achira, Be'li Reishi, Be'li Tapi, Be'lo Ha'oz Le'hanisa, Be'hu Eli, Be'chai Bo'ari, Be'tzur Chevni, Be'hitzara, Be'hu Nisi, U'marosi, Menatosi, Be'yom Ekra, Be'yado, Afiruchi, Be'et Ishon Le'akira, Be'imruchi, Be'yati, Adonai li Elohira.
Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat
Shabbat
Shalom.
shalom.
Join us for live. If you want to come and schmooze and do a little oneg, 6:30 tonight, Friday, on Zoom. Email the congregation if you need a link. And we hope to see you there. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.